Guys, it's Captain Eric. This is going to be your Lake Toho February fishing report. Alright guys, so let's jump right into this. What I'm sitting on out here right now is what I call a Lake Toho spawning flat. You can see that we are not up on the bank. We're not in the grass. We're not in the pads. We're not in the buggy whips. We're not in any of that stuff. We're simply fishing a shallower grass flat. And I'm going to spin this camera around. I don't know if this is going to show up on camera or not, but what we're looking at out here is there's a bunch of isolated clumps of pepper grass out here. Well, you can see this grass is only growing about 2 feet off the bottom. This is ideal. Good warm days coming up, they'll spawn in this stuff. They'll find holes in it. But like this is one of those isolated patches of pepper grass. They'll spawn around that pepper grass. It offers a little bit of protection for them. So this is actually a really good area. You guys can see we're not on the bank, but we're not super far away from the bank either. And with the majority of the fish in the lake these days living way out there in the middle of the lake, they maybe don't necessarily like to go all the way to the shoreline. Lake Toho's got really clean water in it. They can pull up on something like this, spawn out here, and they're good to go. Little male. Getting up here, and that June bug bluetail stickler 5.5, that's going to be my go-to worm for right now. You know, you get that thing around some fish that are trying to spawn, the way that bait shimmies in the water, you don't usually turn it down. Alright guys, so the other part to fishing on Toho this time of year for the next couple of months, and also in the fall sometimes, is the shallow bite. Alright guys, so kind of one of my other favorite things here, as these fish begin to move in from the offshore kind of wintertime stuff, they start to spawn, they'll get on these grass flats, and these emergent grass flats. This is all Kissimmee grass. You got patches of pepper grass mixed in. You've got the bulrush. You know, out west I think they call them tules. Some people call them buggy whips. The round reeds, you know, those grow on really hard sandy bottom. This is great stuff for the fish to spawn in. You know, as we progress through the month of February and getting into March, these areas like this right here, this big sparse Kissimmee grass flat here with the mixed in other patches of vegetation, you know, you go farther in up there, you've got patches of bonnet pads in there, you've got more pepper grass in there, you've got all the patches of round reeds and bulrush, and this is Brown's Point right here. It sticks out into the lake. It's a point, and it attracts a lot of fish. Pretty much everywhere across the lake, these little areas like this, you'll get big waves of spawning fish that pull in and spawn across here. bed, guys. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. I doubt you can. But there is a bed right there in those pads. It's relatively clean. That's a very small bed. Typically beds seem to be somewhat relative in size to the size of the female that'll be there. There we go. Little guy on the wobbler. One of my favorite things to throw this time of year. Little dipper like that. And maybe ease up here, we'll see. Where he bit this at. So a lot of times what happens is when you're throwing a little wobbler like that this time of year and you get that little guy like that to blow up on it and eat it, if you'll go back to that same spot where he ate it at, a lot of times you'll find a bed. Don't see any right here, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to continue the hunt. I tell you what, that's a fun bite. If you guys want to get on Toho and just have some fun catching some fish, get you a pack of these CPF Lures wobblers, throw it on some CPF braid, the 9X braid, 4/0 hook, little tiny small 16th ounce weight on that nose just to kind of keep it in the grass. You'll catch some fish. All right, guys, so as you can see, we're here at another lake. I had to leave Toho this morning and come over here, wound up picking up an afternoon trip out here in Auburndale. So we are on the private lake. But guys, real quick, I wanted to give you a rundown on the top bait picks, or at least my opinion of them, for Toho in the month of February, kind of could be March as well, especially as we kind of enter the spawn season. Guys, you saw this morning I kind of started on some shallower offshore grass flats. Say offshore because it's still out from the Kissimmee grass edge, but they're definitely a little bit shallower hydrilla flats out there with the isolated pepper grass patches out there. As far as out there goes, my top bait choices, the first one's going to be that jackhammer black and blue glitter, little creature bait trailer on there. That's CPF Lures 4-inch creature bait. It's a great chatterbait trailer. Really like this setup out there, working that around those pepper grass patches out there and over that shallower hydrilla. That's going to be my number one. You can really cover a lot of water on that. And pretty much all my rods for all of these baits are pretty much relatively the same. I'm throwing that guy on a Sierra 734. It's a pretty beefy rod. Throw it on straight braid. I'm not doing much of anything with fluorocarbon right now. My other bait pick for out there, that kind of stuff, kind of the same deal as a chatterbait, but a swim jig. My swim jig of choice is a Bakewell Custom Jigs. That's just like it's like a green pumpkin bluegilly pattern. You can see it's got some blue and purple on there. And I'm pairing that up with a watermelon red CPF Lures wobbler. It's a great little swim bait. It's a great little addition to that swim jig right there. Swim jig catches me a lot of fish, especially during the spawn. Anytime the bass are spawning or are on a bed, they get pretty aggressive towards bluegill and shellcracker. any of those smaller panfish coming in the bed and kind of getting after those eggs. I throw that guy on a Cadence 744. Again, it's a pretty stout rod, throwing it on straight braid. You really don't want to be doing anything this time of year where Big Mama can get away from you. Then the last resort for out there on those shallower grass flats for me is going to be a Texas rigged worm. If I go through a grass flat and I'm seeing fish on the live scope, but you know, it's for whatever reason that day, kind of like this morning, they're not really reacting really well to the moving baits, I can drag that Stickler 5.5 June bug blue tail through there, in and around those pepper grass patches, over that shallow grass, and pretty much pick up whatever didn't want to eat my moving bait. You guys have seen my worm rod. It's Champion Extreme 744. That's a great worm rod. That's my favorite. Full cork. That's, of course, on fluorocarbon. It's probably going to be, aside from the fluorocarbon flipping stick, my only fluoro rod out for the next couple of months. So let's get into the shallow water game. Fishing the emergent vegetation, the Kissimmee grass, the pads, the reeds, all that kind of good jazz. When I'm going through that stuff, this guy right here is probably going to be my #1 thing that I grab. Covers a lot of water, and it'll show you a lot of spawning fish, especially before you actually get up on top of them. They'll come up and bust something like this, and then a lot of times you'll get where, like right around where they actually blew up on your bait at, and find a bed there. But my go-to is going to be that big June bug thumper. That's a great worm. CPF Lures did some modifications to the tail on this thing. It's really good. You're not going to cast the tail off. You get short strikes, they're not going to pull the tail off. A lot of your other swimming worms out there are pretty well known for losing your tails. You have to go through a lot of them. This one, you don't have to worry about that. That's going to be my that big June bug swimming worm, and that's the Thumper Pro from CPF Lures, on a belly weighted swim bait hook. And I go light. I go really light on my belly weighted swim bait hook. That's actually like I think that's a 16th ounce. I'm not sure, but you can see how small that is. I want just enough weight to kind of keep it down in the Kissimmee grass, but I don't want it dragging it down too much. I still want to be able to run that worm surface or subsurface. Again, throwing that on a 734, the Dobbins Champion. Kind of a big stick, straight braid, fast reel, heavy drag. If I get bit, I want to be able to drag those fish out of there. You know, the swim jig that I showed a second ago works up there in the shallow emergent vegetation really well too. But probably my other favorite, you guys got to see me catch a fish on it this morning, is that little CPF Lures wobbler. Just a little swim bait, got a lot of action. I throw that on a Texas rig with a super small little tungsten bullet weight in front of him. That guy does all the work for you. You just throw it out. It's kind of like that thumper. You just reel it back through the grass. They will absolutely annihilate that thing. That's a great little bait to be throwing this time of year. It's a great search bait. It'll tell you, it'll let you know whenever there's some fish around that might be on a bed. They get pretty aggressive towards stuff like this time of year. Great bait to be throwing this time of year. Again, Cadence 744. It's another meat stick, straight braid. Don't want those fish to have any shot of getting away. And then, kind of the oddball out here, let's say I'm going across one of those Kissimmee grass flats, or I'm fishing through an area, and I get in an area and I kind of get the feeling, or I'm seeing some beds, or I pretty well, you know that I'm around some spawning fish. Then I'm getting out my fluorocarbon flipping stick. Now this is 20-pound flipping fluorocarbon. Sunline makes it. I don't have any affiliation with any of those guys, but it's a really abrasion resistant fluorocarbon, which is why I like it. Super heavy duty. I've yet to break it on the hook set, which is a big deal. I'm flipping that on an Ecstasy 754. It's a great fluorocarbon flipping stick. It's got the length, it's got the backbone, but it's not too much. It doesn't overpower the fluorocarbon. And anytime during the spawn, my go-to flipping bait, if I'm not flipping a small creature bait, it's going to be that stickler, that 5.5 stickler from CPF Lures. That June bug with that really bright blue tail on it. That blue tail picks up a lot of aggression from those spawning fish, especially around pads, reeds, you know, any of that isolated emergent vegetation up inside those Kissimmee grass flats that those fish are going to be spawning on. You get that guy out right there and start flipping that thing in there, pick a few fish up. But guys, that's pretty much going to be it right there for my top bait choices for Toho in the month of February. You know, we talked a little bit while we were still out there on the lake. As of today, the fish definitely still offshore. If you guys missed the Lake Toho fishing report and top bait picks for the month of January, you may want to go back and watch that again. They're kind of still in that pattern, but I'm expecting those fish to come off of that pattern in the coming weeks. You know, we're coming up on a new moon. The weather's starting to warm up. We're on a warming trend. I suspect a lot of those fish that are still in the middle of that lake and all that hydrilla are going to start heading in for the bank. It's coming up on Valentine's Day. It's time to get romantic and make some bass babies. So that's it, guys. If you guys are out there on Toho and the offshore bite seems to start dropping off on you, you might want to start checking some of the shallower stuff. They may be pulling up on you, and they'll leave you hanging out there on that offshore stuff. But guys, real quick, if you guys are in the market or if y'all are interested in trying a new braid, make sure you check out CPF Lures' 9X braid. That stuff right there is a fantastic braid. It's a no fade black braid. I don't know if y'all can see that or not, but that braid is jet black and it's made out of 9 strands. It's extremely quiet going through heavy cover. It's extremely strong. And my favorite thing about it is you can get away with a much smaller diameter braid than what you used to have to use. I used to flip 65-pound braid, and now I'm using 45. On my swim jigs and stuff like that, I'm using the 30. It's a much smaller diameter. It's a little sneakier, a little stealthier. Might pick you up a few more bites. And yeah, check out that 9X braid. And if you guys find yourself online getting some CPF lure stuff, make sure you use Tilson 15 at checkout. It's going to save you a little bit of dough at the end of your shopping spree there. But that's it, guys. I got to get this boat launched and get ready for a little afternoon trip out here on private lake. It was pretty exciting. I think these fish out here are spawning already, so I think we might be sight fishing some up. All right, guys. Catch you on the next one. See you.